World War II, the big one. A clash of ideologies, a fight for freedom, a global conflict that reshaped the 20th century. It was a war that touched every corner of the globe, involving more than 100 million people from over 30 countries. The scale of the conflict was unprecedented, and its impact was felt for generations. It was a war that pitted nation against nation, with two main sides battling for supremacy. The Axis and the Allies, each with their own vision for the future of the world, clashed in a series of brutal confrontations that would determine the course of history. On one side stood the Axis powers, led by Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. These nations, driven by expansionist ambitions and totalitarian ideologies, sought to dominate and reshape the world order to their liking. On the other, the Allies, spearheaded by Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union. This coalition of nations, despite their differences, united in their determination to stop the spread of tyranny and restore peace and stability to the world. The seeds of war were sown in the aftermath of World War I. The Great War, as it was known, left Europe in ruins and its people in despair. The Treaty of Versailles, which was supposed to bring lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of future conflict. The Treaty of Versailles, meant to ensure peace, instead bred resentment and instability. The harsh terms imposed on Germany, including crippling reparations and territorial losses, created a sense of humiliation and anger among the German people. Germany, burdened by crippling reparations and territorial losses, became fertile ground for extremist ideologies. The economic hardships and political instability of the Weimar Republic created an environment in which radical ideas could take root and flourish. Against this backdrop, a charismatic but ruthless leader emerged, Adolf Hitler. A former soldier and failed artist, Hitler's oratory skills and propaganda prowess allowed him to tap into the deep-seated grievances of the German people. Fueled by nationalist fervor and a thirst for revenge, Hitler promised to restore Germany to its former glory. His vision of a new German empire, free from the shackles of the Treaty of Versailles, resonated with a population desperate for change. His Nazi Party, preaching a toxic mix of racial superiority and territorial expansion, quickly gained traction in a nation desperate for change. The Nazis' message of unity and strength, combined with their ruthless suppression of dissent, allowed them to consolidate power rapidly. The world watched with growing apprehension as Hitler, emboldened by his domestic success, began to flex his military muscle. The reoccupation of the Rhineland, the annexation of Austria, and the dismemberment of Czechoslovakia were all steps in his grand plan for European domination. The invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939 shattered the fragile peace, plunging the world into the deadliest conflict in human history. This act of aggression prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the official start of World War II. The conflict that followed would engulf the world in a maelstrom of violence and destruction, forever altering the course of human history. Blitzkrieg across Europe. Hitler unleashed a new form of warfare upon Europe, blitzkrieg. This strategy, which translates to lightning war, was designed to bring about quick and decisive victories, minimizing prolonged engagements and maximizing the element of surprise. Lightning war in German, blitzkrieg, was a brutally effective combination of fast-moving tanks, which could penetrate deep into enemy territory, creating confusion and disarray among the defending forces. These tanks were not just powerful, they were also highly mobile, allowing the German army to outmaneuver their opponents with ease. Coordinated air power played a crucial role in this strategy. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, would launch devastating bombing raids to soften up enemy defenses and disrupt supply lines. This aerial assault was synchronized with the ground attack, ensuring that the enemy was overwhelmed from multiple directions simultaneously. Mechanized infantry, equipped with the latest in military technology, would follow closely behind the tanks, securing captured territory and dealing with any remaining resistance. It relied on speed, surprise, and overwhelming force to break through enemy lines and sow chaos. The rapid pace of the blitzkrieg left little time for the enemy to regroup or mount an effective counterattack. This relentless advance created a sense of panic and confusion, further weakening the enemy's ability to resist. Poland, caught off guard by the ferocity of the German onslaught, fell swiftly. The Polish army, despite its bravery, was no match for the highly coordinated and technologically superior German forces. Within weeks, Poland was overrun, and its cities lay in ruins. Next in line were Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and finally, France. Each of these nations, despite their efforts to resist, fell in rapid succession. The speed and efficiency of the German advance were unprecedented, leaving the world in shock and awe. The once mighty French army, bogged down by outdated tactics and a false sense of security, crumbled under the relentless German advance. The French had relied heavily on the Maginot Line, a series of fortifications along their border with Germany, but the Germans simply bypassed these defenses, rendering them useless. The fall of France in June 1940 sent shockwaves across the globe. The rapid collapse of one of Europe's most powerful nations was a stark demonstration of the effectiveness of blitzkrieg. Paris, the heart of France, was occupied, and the French government was forced to sign an armistice, effectively ending their resistance. Continental Europe lay at Hitler's feet. With France defeated, Germany had established dominance over much of Western Europe. Hitler's ambitions seemed unstoppable, and the world watched in fear as the Nazi war machine continued its march. Only Great Britain, led by the indomitable Winston Churchill, stood defiant. Churchill's speeches rallied the British people, instilling a sense of determination and resilience. Despite the odds, Britain refused to surrender, preparing to face the full might of the German military. The Battle of Britain, a months-long aerial campaign waged in the skies above England, became a pivotal moment in the war's early years. The Luftwaffe launched relentless attacks, aiming to destroy the Royal Air Force and pave the way for a German invasion. The skies over Britain became a battleground with dogfights and bombing raids occurring daily. The Royal Air Force, though outnumbered, fought with incredible bravery and skill. Pilots from Britain and its allies took to the skies, determined to defend their homeland. Their courage and tenacity became legendary as they faced wave after wave of German aircraft, ultimately denying Hitler the air superiority he needed to launch an invasion across the English Channel. The RAF's success in the Battle of Britain marked a turning point in the war, proving that the German war machine was not invincible and giving hope to the Allied forces. While the fires of war raged in Europe, the world was witnessing unprecedented destruction. Cities lay in ruins, and the cries of the innocent echoed through the streets. The European theater was a grim testament to the horrors of war, with every battle leaving behind a trail of devastation. Meanwhile, another conflict was brewing in the Pacific. The vast expanse of the ocean became a strategic chessboard, with military bases and islands turning into pivotal points of contention. The Pacific theater was a complex web of strategies and counter-strategies, each side vying for dominance. Imperial Japan, driven by its own expansionist ambitions, was on the move. The nation, fueled by a desire to dominate and expand its territory, showcased its military might through grand parades and relentless marches. The Japanese war machine was in full swing, ready to challenge any opposition. Japan had set its sights on East Asia, aiming to establish a vast empire. The occupation of territories in East Asia was a clear indication of their aggressive expansionist policies. The map of the region was rapidly changing, with Japanese flags marking new conquests. The United States, with its Pacific territories and economic interests in the region, stood in Japan's way. The American presence in the Pacific was not just a matter of territorial control, but also of safeguarding economic interests. The tension between the two nations was palpable, with each move being closely watched. On December 7, 1941, a date that would forever be etched in history, the world held its breath. The early morning calm was shattered by the sounds of engines roaring and bombs exploding. The Japanese launched a surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The skies over Pearl Harbor were filled with Japanese planes, their bombs raining down with deadly precision. The attack was swift and devastating, catching the American forces off guard. The attack, a desperate gamble aimed at crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet, left a trail of destruction in its wake. Battleships were damaged, and the once formidable fleet was left reeling. The aerial view of the attack showed the extent of the devastation, with smoke billowing from the wreckage. The news of the attack shocked the American public and galvanized the nation. People gathered around radios and newspapers trying to grasp the enormity of the event. The sense of disbelief quickly turned into a unified resolve to respond to the aggression. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, famously declaring December 7th a date which will live in infamy, addressed the nation with a steely determination. His words resonated with every American as he called for a decisive response to the unprovoked attack. Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war on Japan, marking the United States' official entry into World War II. The halls of Congress echoed with the gravity of the moment as lawmakers united in their decision to defend the nation. The United States, thrust into a two-front war, began mobilizing its military forces. Soldiers prepared for deployment, boarding ships that would take them to distant battlefields. The nation was gearing up for a long and arduous fight. The U.S. joined forces with Great Britain and the other Allied nations, forming a formidable coalition. Military leaders from the Allied nations met to strategize and plan their next moves, determined to turn the tide of the war. The world watched as the conflict escalated, drawing in more countries and engulfing the globe in a fight for survival. The battle lines were drawn, and the stakes were higher than ever. The global conflict saw soldiers from multiple nations fighting side by side, united by a common cause. The alliances formed during this time would shape the course of history, as the world braced itself for the monumental battles that lay ahead. The year is 1944. After years of brutal fighting, the tide begins to turn in favor of the Allies. On June 6, 1944, a date forever etched in history as D-Day, Allied forces launched a massive amphibious assault on the beaches of Normandy, France. This daring operation, the largest seaborne invasion in history, marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. Under a barrage of naval and air support, American, British, and Canadian troops stormed ashore, facing fierce resistance from the entrenched German defenders. The beaches of Normandy, codenamed Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juno, and Sword, became battlefields of unparalleled ferocity. Despite heavy casualties, the Allies gained a foothold in France, paving the way for the liberation of Western Europe. The liberation of Paris in August 1944 sent shockwaves through the Nazi regime. The war, once a distant prospect, was now at Germany's doorstep.